The sun was barely up over the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in Coronado, California, but the shooting range was already alive with activity. 20 Navy SEALs, the best of the best, were gathering for their quarterly qualification tests. These were men who had survived Hell Week, conquered impossible missions, and earned the respect of the entire military community. And then she walked in. Lieutenant Maya Chen was 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighed maybe 110 pounds soaking wet. She had a young face, the kind that made TSA agents ask for her ID twice. Her short black hair was tucked under her cap, and her uniform hung on her small frame like it was borrowed from someone bigger. When she entered the range area, carrying her gear bag, the conversation stopped. Then the laughter started. "Hey, did someone bring their kid to work?" A big SEAL named Briggs called out. He was 6'4", all muscle, with arms like tree trunks. "I think he's lost," another one said. "Youth shooting camp is next week, son." Maya kept walking, her face neutral. She had heard it all before. Every base, every assignment, every room she walked into. People saw her size, her young face, and they made assumptions. "Excuse me," a lieutenant commander named Russo stepped in front of her. "This is a restricted area, SEAL qualification only." Maya set down her bag and pulled out her orders. "Lieutenant Maya Chen, reporting for Joint Operations Training and Qualification, sir." Russo took the papers, his eyebrows rising. "Chen, you're Chen." "Yes, sir." "I was expecting someone different." "You were expecting a man, sir." Russo's face reddened slightly. "I was expecting someone with SEAL experience. Your special operations from the Army side, is that correct?" "Yes, sir. I was with the 75th Ranger Regiment. Now I'm assigned to Joint Task Force Operations. My orders state I'm to qualify on all SEAL standard tests." The SEALs had gathered around now, looking at this tiny woman who claimed she was going to run their qualification course. Briggs laughed out loud. "This is a joke, right? Someone put you up to this." Maya looked at him directly. "No joke, I'm here to qualify." "Sweetheart, do you know what SEAL qualification involves? We're talking expert marksmanship, close quarters combat, distance shooting, moving targets, stress scenarios. This isn't some basic Army range course." "I'm aware of the requirements, sir." Another SEAL, a man named Patterson, shook his head. "Look, no offense, but you're what, 12? How long have you even been in the military?" "I'm 26, and I've been active duty for 8 years. That brought more laughter. She looked like she was barely old enough to vote, let alone be a combat veteran. Russo looked uncomfortable. "Lieutenant Chen, perhaps we should start you on a modified course, something more appropriate for your experience level." "With respect, sir, my orders don't say anything about a modified course. They say full qualification." "Your orders might say that, but I'm responsible for safety on this range. I can't have someone who isn't ready." "How do you know I'm not ready? You haven't seen me shoot." Briggs stepped closer, looming over her. Maya didn't step back. "Little girl, I've been a SEAL for 12 years. I've done 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq, and operations in 7 other countries you've never heard of. I've forgotten more about shooting than you'll ever know." Maya looked up at him calmly. "Then you should remember that marksmanship isn't about size, it's about skill. It's about a lot more than that. It's about strength, endurance, mental toughness. Can you even hold a M110 rifle steady? That weapon weighs more than your leg." The other SEALs were loving this. They gathered around, arms crossed, smirking. "Tell you what," Patterson said. "Why don't you show us what you got? If you can pass the basic qualification, maybe we'll take you seriously." Russo nodded. "That's fair. Lieutenant Chen, if you want to be here, prove you belong. Basic marksmanship test. 50 yards, 20 rounds, stationary targets. You need 90% accuracy to move forward." Maya nodded, "And when I pass?" "If you pass, we'll talk about the full course." "When I pass, I want to run the full SEAL qualification. Same standards as everyone else. No modifications." Briggs laughed. "Sure, kid, when you pass, you can run whatever you want." They set her up at Station 5. Word had spread through the facility that something entertaining was happening at the range, and more SEALs were gathering to watch. Some brought coffee. A few were taking bets. Maya unpacked her gear methodically. She checked her rifle, loaded the magazine, settled into position. She had done this thousands of times. The weight of the weapon was familiar in her hands. The feel of the stock against her shoulder was like coming home. But she could hear them behind her, the whispers, the jokes. $20 says she doesn't hit the target once. I'll take that bet. She'll hit it once, maybe twice, then flinch and miss everything else. This is embarrassing. Someone should have stopped this. Maya took a breath. She had learned long ago that the noise didn't matter. The mockery didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the target and the trigger. She fired. The first shot hit dead center, perfect bullseye. The second shot hit a hair's width from the first. The third, fourth, fifth, all clustered in a group smaller than a quarter. The laughter behind her had stopped. Maya kept firing. Steady, controlled, perfect rhythm, each shot exactly where she wanted it. She wasn't just hitting the target. She was putting every single round through nearly the same hole. When she finished, she cleared her weapon and stepped back. The range master checked the target through his scope. His face went blank with surprise. 20 rounds fired, he called out. 20 hits, all within a 2-inch grouping at 50 yards. The crowd of SEALs was silent now. Russo walked up to examine the target himself. He pulled it down, looked at it closely, then looked at Maya. I've been doing this for 15 years, he said quietly. I've never seen grouping that tight on a first run, never. Briggs came over too. The smirk was gone from his face. You got lucky. Maya looked at him. It wasn't luck. 50 yards is nothing. Let's see you do it at 100, 200. Let's see you do it when you're exhausted, when your hands are shaking, when you've got pressure on you. That's what the full qualification is for, isn't it? Russo studied her for a long moment. All right, Lieutenant Chen, you want the full course? You've got it. But understand, this is the same test we give SEAL team candidates. Most of them fail at least one section. There's no shame in not completing it. I'll complete it. Confidence is good. Overconfidence gets people hurt. It's not overconfidence, sir. It's preparation. Patterson spoke up. The full qual takes all day, 6 different shooting scenarios, each one harder than the last. The record for perfect score was set 7 years ago by a master chief with 20 years' experience. Nobody's beaten it since. Maya picked up her gear bag. What time do we start? They started at 800. The first test was distance shooting. Targets at 100, 200, and 300 yards, variable wind conditions. Maya shot perfect scores at all 3 distances. The SEALs watched in growing silence. The second test was moving targets. Clay pigeons launched at random intervals while the shooter moved through an obstacle course. It tested reflexes, coordination, and the ability to shoot while your heart rate was elevated. Maya broke every single target, didn't miss one. By lunchtime, word had spread beyond the range. Officers were coming out of their offices. The base commander had been called. A crowd of over 100 personnel had gathered to watch this tiny woman systematically dismantle every record on the board. But the hardest tests were still to come. And the SEALs who had mocked her that morning were no longer laughing. They were watching in disbelief as everything they thought they knew was proven wrong. The afternoon sun beat down on the range as Maya moved into the third qualification test. This one was close quarters combat shooting, multiple targets at varying distances, some hostile, some friendly, all requiring split-second decisions. The shooter had to move through a mock-up of a building, clearing rooms while under time pressure. This is where small size actually becomes a problem, Briggs said to Russo, loud enough for Maya to hear. You need strength to move through that course quickly, need to be able to handle doors, obstacles, all while keeping your weapon ready. Maya didn't respond. She was studying the course layout, memorizing the pattern. The range master gave her the briefing. You'll have 4 minutes to clear 12 rooms. Some have multiple targets. Some have civilians mixed with hostiles. You fire on a civilian, you fail. You miss a hostile, you fail. You take longer than 4 minutes, you fail. Any questions? No, sir. Timer starts when you cross the threshold. Maya checked her weapon one more time, then moved to the entrance. When the buzzer sounded, she was already in motion. What happened next became legendary at Coronado. Maya moved through that course like water flowing downhill. She was fast, impossibly fast, her small size letting her pivot and move in ways the bigger SEALs couldn't. She flowed around corners, her weapon always up, always ready. Bang, bang, 2 hostiles down in room 1. She was through the door to room 2 before the targets had finished falling. Bang, one hostile behind cover. Room 3 had a civilian, a cardboard cutout of a woman holding a child. Maya swept past without firing, acquired the hostile behind them, fired once, moved on. The SEALs watching the camera feed were speechless. "How is she moving that fast?" Patterson whispered. "Look at her weapon discipline," someone else said. "She's not wasting a single movement." Room after room, Maya cleared the course with mechanical precision. Every shot was perfect. Every decision was correct. She identified threats and neutralized them in fractions of a second. When she emerged from the final room, the timer read 3 minutes and 7 seconds. The course record was 3 minutes and 42 seconds. She had just shattered it by 35 seconds. And she hadn't missed a single shot. The range master checked his equipment twice, certain there must be an error. But the cameras didn't lie, neither did the targets. Russo stared at the results on his tablet. "That's impossible." "It's not impossible," Maya said quietly. "I've been training for this my whole life." "Your whole life? You mean in the army?" "No, sir, I mean my whole life." She didn't elaborate, and something in her eyes made Russo not push the question. The fourth test was long-range precision. 1,000 yards, wind variable, elevation changes. This was sniper-level skill, the kind of shooting that took years to master. The targets were small, some of them barely bigger than a dinner plate. "Now we'll see reality," Briggs muttered. "Nobody shoots perfect at 1,000 yards, not even our best snipers." But Maya proved him wrong again. She took her time with these shots, reading the wind, calculating the adjustments. Each shot took nearly a minute to set up, but when she fired, the results were the same. Perfect. By the fifth test, shooting while wearing a gas mask in a smoke-filled environment, the mockery had completely disappeared. The SEALs were no longer making jokes. They were watching in awe. Some of them were taking notes. Maya completed the fifth test with a score that matched the best ever recorded. Not better, but equal to a Master Chief who had been legendary for his gas mask shooting ability. The final test was the breaker. It was designed to test performance under maximum stress and fatigue. After running a 2-mile course in full gear, the shooter had to immediately engage targets at various ranges while their heart rate was over 150 beats per minute. Hands would be shaking. Vision would be affected. Most shooters saw their accuracy drop by 30 to 40%. "This is it," Patterson said. "She's been impressive, but nobody maintains accuracy after that run. The record is 65% accuracy on the stress test. That was set by a SEAL who went on to become a Master Chief instructor." Maya ran the 2 miles in 13 minutes, carrying 40 pounds of gear. When she finished, her face was flushed and sweat poured down her face, but her eyes were focused. She had 30 seconds to get to the shooting position. She made it in 15. The targets appeared at random distances: 50 yards, 200, 400, back to 100, each one visible for only seconds before disappearing. Maya's hands were shaking. Her breath was coming in gasps. This was the most difficult shooting she had ever attempted. She fired, hit, fired again, hit. Again and again, even with her heart pounding and her muscles screaming, she found the zone. That place of perfect calm she had learned to access. The place where nothing existed except her and the target. When the final target fell, she lowered her weapon and waited for her heart rate to come down. The range master was staring at his computer screen. He looked up at Russo with an expression of complete disbelief. "Sir, you need to see this." Russo came over, looked at the screen, and his face went pale. "That can't be right. Check it again." The range master ran the analysis a second time. Same result. Russo walked over to where Maya was standing, drinking water, trying to cool down. "Lieutenant Chen, you just shot 92% accuracy on the stress test." The crowd of SEALs erupted in shock. 92%? The record was 65. "That's not possible," Briggs said. "Nobody shoots 92% after that run. Nobody." "The computer doesn't lie," the range master said. 25 targets, 23 hits, 2 misses, both on the 400-yard targets, and both were within inches of center mass. Patterson was shaking his head. "What's her overall score?" Russo calculated it on his tablet. His hands were actually shaking. Overall qualification score of 98.6%. He looked up at the crowd. The previous record was 91.2, set by Master Chief Davidson 7 years ago. Lieutenant Chen just broke the SEAL qualification range record by more than 7 points. The silence that followed was absolute. These were men who had dedicated their lives to being the best, who had pushed themselves to the limit of human endurance, who had trained for years to master the skills that Maya had just demonstrated. And a woman they had mocked as a little boy that morning had just beaten all of them. Maya set down her water bottle. "Does this mean I'm qualified, sir?" Russell laughed, but it was a sound of amazement, not mockery. "Qualified? Lieutenant, you just set a new standard. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" For the first time that day, emotion showed on Maya's face. Pain, old and deep. "My father, sir. He was a Marine sniper. He taught me to shoot when I was 6 years old." "He must be very proud of you." Maya's expression hardened. "He's dead, sir. Killed in action in Fallujah when I was 14. The mood shifted. The SEALs were looking at her differently now, not as a curiosity or a joke, but as one of them. Someone who understood loss, someone who carried the weight. "He told me that people would always underestimate me because of my size," Maya continued. "He said I could let that make me bitter, or I could let it make me better. He said the only way to silence doubt was with perfection." Briggs stepped forward. The big SEAL who had laughed the hardest that morning looked ashamed now. "I owe you an apology, Lieutenant. What I said this morning was out of line." Maya looked at him. "You said what you thought, everyone does." "I was wrong." "You were, but I'm used to it." "You shouldn't have to be." Patterson came over too. "Ma'am, I've been a SEAL for 10 years. I've trained with the best shooters in the world. What you did today, I've never seen anything like it." Other SEALs were nodding, murmuring agreement. But Maya didn't smile, didn't celebrate. She just picked up her gear bag. "If we're done here, sir, I need to report to my commanding officer." Russo stopped her. "Wait, Lieutenant, the reason you're here." "The Joint Task Force assignment. You were brought in for a specific reason, weren't you?" Maya hesitated. "That's classified, sir." "I have the clearance. I'm going to be read in tomorrow. You might as well tell me now." Maya glanced at the crowd of SEALs, then back at Russo. "There's a mission. High-value target in a hostile area. The problem is the target is protected by a security team that knows to watch for military-aged males. They're looking for big, fit men who match the SEAL profile. They'll spot your operators a mile away." Understanding dawned on Russo's face. "But they won't be looking for someone like you." "No, sir. They'll see a small woman, young-looking, non-threatening. By the time they realize what I am, it'll be too late." "You're going in alone." "I work best alone." Briggs looked horrified. "You're talking about a solo infiltration into hostile territory. That's a suicide mission." Maya finally smiled, but it was cold. "Only if I fail, and I don't plan to fail." 3 days later, Maya sat in a classified briefing room at the Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters. The room was filled with senior officers, intelligence analysts, and the SEAL team that would provide her support, from a distance. Commander Jack Holland ran the briefing. He was a veteran SEAL with 25 years of service, a Silver Star, and a reputation for running the most difficult missions in the special operations community. "The target is Karim al-Rashid," Holland said, pulling up a photo on the screen. "He's the money man for 3 different terrorist organizations. We've been tracking him for 2 years. He moves constantly, always surrounded by security, always careful. But we finally have a window." The screen changed to show a compound in Yemen. "Al-Rashid is meeting with financial backers here in 4 days. The compound is in a small city, mixed civilian and hostile presence. We can't go in heavy. Too much risk of civilian casualties, too much risk of international incident. We need surgical precision." He looked at Maya. "That's where you come in, Lieutenant Chen." Maya studied the compound layout. 3 buildings, high walls, multiple security checkpoints. "What's my cover?" "You'll be posing as a journalist. Al-Rashid has been trying to build a legitimate business front. He's agreed to an interview with a regional news outlet. You'll take the place of the real journalist." "How do I get the real journalist out of the way?" "Already handled. She's been paid very well to take a sudden vacation. You'll have her credentials, her equipment, everything you need to pass initial screening." An intelligence officer spoke up. The security team will check you for weapons. They'll scan your equipment. You won't be able to bring in a firearm. Maya nodded. What about support? Holland gestured to the SEALs in the room. Team 6 will be staged 2 miles away. Once you've completed the mission, you'll have a 3-minute window to get to the extraction point. If you miss it, you're on your own until we can mount a rescue. Briggs, who was part of the support team, looked uncomfortable. Commander, with respect, this is asking a lot of one operator. Let me go in with her. I can pose as a cameraman or... No, Maya said. They're expecting one journalist. 2 people means 2 sets of credentials to verify, twice the chance of being discovered. I go alone. But if something goes wrong, then I handle it. That's the job. Holland continued the briefing. Al-Rashid has 6 bodyguards with him at all times, all former military, all experienced. The compound has another 12 security personnel. You'll be outnumbered 18-1. I've had worse odds, Maya said quietly. Patterson, who was also on the support team, leaned forward. Ma'am, we've all seen what you can do on the range, but this is different. This is real combat, real danger. If they discover who you are, they won't just kill you. They'll make an example of you. Maya met his eyes. I know what they'll do, that's why I won't get caught. The planning session lasted 6 hours. They went over every detail. Entry procedures, extraction routes, communication protocols, contingency plans. Maya memorized the face of every security guard, every layout of every building, every possible complication. When they finally broke, Russo pulled her aside. Chen, you don't have to do this. We can find another way. There is no other way. You said it yourself. Al-Rashid is too careful. This is the only chance we'll get. And if you can't complete the mission, then I'll still gather intelligence, still get closer than anyone else has gotten. Either way, it's worth the risk. Not if we lose you. Maya smiled sadly. I'm one person, sir. Al-Rashid has killed hundreds. We'll kill hundreds more if we don't stop him. The math is simple. That night, Maya sat alone in her quarters, cleaning and recleaning a weapon she wouldn't be able to carry on the mission. It was a ritual, a way to focus her mind. There was a knock on her door. She opened it to find the entire SEAL support team standing there. Briggs, Patterson, and 4 others. We wanted to talk to you, Briggs said, before you go. She let them in. 7 large men crowded into her small room. We've been talking, Patterson said, about what you said, about being underestimated your whole life, about having to prove yourself again and again. It's fine, Maya said. I'm used to it. That's the problem, Briggs said. You shouldn't be used to it. What we did on the range that first day, that was wrong. We judged you before we knew you. And now we're sending you into hell alone because we can't do what you can do. You're sending me because I'm the best option for the mission. You're the only option, another SEAL said. And that bothers us. You've proven yourself 10 times over, but you're still having to take all the risk. Maya looked at them. These were good men, she realized. Men who had made a mistake but were trying to make it right. I appreciate this, she said. But this is what I signed up for. My father used to tell me that being underestimated is a tactical advantage. People who think you're weak won't see you coming. People who think you're helpless won't guard against you. My whole career, I've turned their doubt into my weapon. Your father sounds like he was a wise man, Patterson said. He was. He also told me that the people worth respecting are the ones who can admit when they're wrong and try to do better. She looked at each of them. You all could have kept treating me like a joke. Instead, you're here. That matters. Briggs extended his hand. We'll be on that extraction point, and if anything goes wrong, we're coming for you. Orders or no orders, we don't leave people behind. Maya shook his hand. I'm counting on you to be there, but I won't need a rescue. I'll need a fast ride home. After they left, Maya lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't afraid of the mission. She had been preparing for something like this her entire life. But she was tired of proving herself, tired of being doubted, tired of being the exception that had to be exceptional just to be treated as equal. Still, in the morning, she would get up. She would put on her disguise. She would walk into danger with her head high. Because that's what her father had taught her. Being a warrior wasn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It was about being the one who didn't quit. 4 days later, Maya stood at a checkpoint in Yemen, dressed in civilian clothes, carrying a camera bag and press credentials. Her hair was longer now, thanks to extensions. She wore makeup, glasses, and a headscarf that covered part of her face. The security guard looked at her credentials, then at her face, then back at the credentials. "You are very young to be a journalist," he said in accented English. Maya smiled nervously, playing the role. "I get that a lot, but I've been doing this for 5 years." "What will you ask Mr. Al-Rashid?" "Questions about his business ventures, his charitable work. He's agreed to discuss his vision for the region's economic future." The guard studied her for a long moment. Maya's heart was pounding, but her face remained calm. Finally, he stamped her credentials and waved her through. She was in. The compound was exactly as the intelligence photos had shown. 3 buildings arranged in a U-shape, with a courtyard in the center. Al-Rashid was in the main building, 2nd floor, northwest corner. Maya was escorted by 2 more guards to the building entrance. They searched her camera bag, ran detectors over her equipment, patted her down professionally but thoroughly. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Maya didn't need a weapon, she was a weapon. She was led upstairs to a sitting room where Al-Rashid waited. He was younger than his photo suggested, maybe 45, with a neat beard and expensive clothes. He smiled when she entered. "Welcome, please sit. Would you like tea?" "Thank you," Maya said, setting up her camera. Her hands were steady, her voice was calm. She had 3 minutes alone with one of the world's most dangerous men. And in those 3 minutes, she would change everything. The truth comes out. Maya set up her camera on the tripod, making small talk with Al-Rashid while her mind calculated distances, angles, and timing. The 2 bodyguards stood by the door, watching her with professional suspicion. They had checked her equipment, searched her thoroughly, and found nothing dangerous. They had no idea what she really was. "So," Al-Rashid said, settling into his chair with a cup of tea, "what would your readers like to know about my work?" Maya smiled, adjusting the camera. "Let's start with your charitable foundation. You've donated millions to schools and hospitals throughout the region." It was true. Al-Rashid was smart enough to buy goodwill with a fraction of the money he made funding terror operations. It made him look legitimate, made him harder to touch. "I believe in giving back to my community," he said smoothly. "Education and healthcare are fundamental human rights." As he spoke, Maya pressed a sequence of buttons on her camera that had nothing to do with photography. It was a signal, transmitted to a receiver 2 miles away where the SEAL team waited. "Target confirmed, in position." The camera's internal mechanism quietly armed a device that the security team's scanners had missed because it was disguised as standard camera components. Maya had exactly 8 minutes before the device activated. She asked questions, played her role, let Al-Rashid talk about his legitimate business interests while she mapped every detail of the room. 2 exits, windows overlooking the courtyard, bodyguards armed with pistols positioned by the door. 6 minutes remaining. "You know," Al-Rashid said suddenly, "you remind me of someone. There was another young woman, a journalist, who interviewed me several years ago. She asked very intelligent questions. Later, I learned she was working for American intelligence." Maya's blood went cold, but her face remained calm. "What happened to her?" "She disappeared. Tragic, really. The region can be dangerous for those who aren't careful." It was a threat, delivered with a smile. 4 minutes remaining. Maya stood up, pretending to adjust her camera angle. She moved closer to Al-Rashid, and the bodyguards tensed. "Please remain seated," one of them said in Arabic. Maya answered in the same language fluently. "I just need a better shot. The lighting is difficult." That was her first mistake. The real journalist didn't speak Arabic. Al-Rashid's eyes narrowed. "You speak Arabic, that wasn't in your profile." "I studied it in university," Maya said quickly. "I thought it would help my career." "Which university?" She named the one from the real journalist's background. But Al-Rashid was already standing, and the bodyguards had their hands on their weapons. "I think this interview is over," Al-Rashid said. "Ahmed, check her credentials again. Something isn't right." 2 minutes remaining. Maya backed toward the window. "I don't understand. Is there a problem?" "The problem," Al-Rashid said, "is that I just received a text from my security chief. The real journalist you're impersonating was found in Dubai an hour ago. So who are you?" The bodyguards drew their weapons. Maya raised her hands. "I can explain." She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she grabbed the heavy camera tripod and swung it like a club, hitting the nearest bodyguard in the throat. He went down, gasping. The second bodyguard fired, but Maya was already moving, using Al-Rashid as a shield. The bullet went wide. 1 minute remaining. Maya twisted, using a move her father had taught her when she was 12, and drove her elbow into Al-Rashid's solar plexus. He doubled over. She grabbed his head and slammed it into the wall. He collapsed. The second bodyguard was raising his weapon again when Maya threw the camera at his face. It bought her a second, enough time to close the distance. She disarmed him with a technique that broke 2 of his fingers, then used his own weapon to strike him unconscious. 30 seconds. Shouts came from downstairs. The sound of gunfire had alerted the entire compound. Maya grabbed Al-Rashid's unconscious body and hauled him toward the window. He was twice her weight, but adrenaline gave her strength. She threw open the window just as the device in her camera bag activated. The electromagnetic pulse knocked out every electronic device in a 100-yard radius. Lights went dark, radios went dead. The entire compound's security system died instantly. And in that moment of darkness and confusion, Maya did something nobody expected. She jumped out the second-story window, dragging Al-Rashid with her. They landed hard in the courtyard. Maya felt something in her ankle twist, but there was no time for pain. She hauled Al-Rashid over her shoulder in a fireman's carry and ran for the wall. Gunfire erupted behind her. Bullets kicked up dust at her feet. But the darkness and chaos worked in her favor. The guards were shooting blind, confused, trying to understand what had happened. Maya reached the wall and triggered the second part of her plan. Explosive charges that the SEAL team had planted the night before detonated, blowing a hole in the compound wall. She dove through, still carrying Al-Rashid, and rolled down an embankment on the other side. A black SUV was waiting, engine running. Briggs was in the driver's seat, Patterson in the back with a weapon ready. "Gio," Maya shouted, throwing Al-Rashid into the vehicle and climbing in after him. The SUV peeled out as more gunfire erupted from the compound. Bullets shattered the rear window, but they were already moving, racing through the narrow streets. "You're crazy," Briggs shouted over the noise. "The plan was to kill him, not kidnap him." "Change of plans," Maya shouted back, zip-tying Al-Rashid's hands. "He's worth more alive." They made it to the extraction point with 40 seconds to spare. A helicopter was waiting, rotors already spinning. The team piled in, and they were airborne before Al-Rashid's security team even made it out of the compound. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in a Pentagon briefing room, her ankle in a walking boot, facing a room full of generals and intelligence officials. Al-Rashid had talked, given up everything in exchange for a plea deal. 3 terrorist networks had been dismantled. Dozens of planned attacks had been prevented. Financial networks that had funded terror operations for a decade had been frozen. It was the biggest intelligence coup in 5 years. And it had all come from the woman they had called Little Boy on the range. General Patricia Morrison stood at the front of the room. "Lieutenant Chen, on behalf of the Joint Special Operations Command, I want to thank you for your exceptional service. What you accomplished was nothing short of extraordinary." "I was just doing my job, ma'am." "You did far more than that. I'm told that after you set the SEAL qualification record, there was some skepticism about whether you could perform in actual combat conditions." Maya glanced at Briggs and Patterson, who were also in the room. They both looked embarrassed. "I believe that skepticism has been thoroughly addressed," the general continued. "In fact, I'm pleased to inform you that you're being awarded the Defense Superior Service Medal for your actions in Yemen. Additionally, you're being promoted to captain." The room applauded. Maya stood at attention, overwhelmed. But the general wasn't finished. "There's something else. The SEAL qualification course record you set has been causing quite a stir in the special operations community. Some people believed there must have been an error in the scoring, so we did something unprecedented." A screen behind the general lit up with footage from the range. "We reviewed every second of your qualification, had 3 independent experts analyze your performance, and they all came to the same conclusion." The general smiled. Not only was there no error, but when they factored in variables like your size, the weight of the weapons relative to your body mass, and the physical disadvantages you face compared to larger operators, your performance was even more impressive than the raw scores suggested. She paused for effect. So we're doing something that's never been done before. We're establishing a new qualification category, the Chen Standard. Any operator, male or female, who can match your performance will be designated as achieving the highest possible level of marksmanship qualification. Maya felt tears in her eyes. Her father would have been so proud. After the ceremony, Briggs and Patterson approached her. "Captain Chen," Briggs said formally, then grinned. "Sounds good." "Thank you." "We wanted to apologize again," Patterson said, "for how we treated you. We were wrong and we're sorry." Maya looked at these men who had once mocked her, who had then protected her, who were now genuinely trying to make amends. "You know what my father told me, the last time I saw him before he deployed." They shook their heads. "He said that life would be hard for me, that I'd face prejudice and doubt and people who couldn't see past what I looked like. But he said the measure of a person isn't in whether they make mistakes, it's in whether they learn from them." She extended her hand. "You made a mistake, you learned from it. You had my back when it mattered. In my book, that makes you good men." Briggs shook her hand. "If you ever need backup again, you call us, anytime, anywhere." "I will." As Maya left the Pentagon that day, walking in her boot cast toward her car, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. All the times she'd been underestimated. All the times she'd had to prove herself. All the times she'd been called names, laughed at, dismissed. And all the times she'd proven them wrong. Her father had been right. Being underestimated was a weapon, but only if you were strong enough to wield it. She got in her car and drove toward her next assignment, ready for whatever came next. Because that's what warriors do. They keep moving forward. 6 months later, at the SEAL training facility in Coronado, a new class of candidates gathered at the shooting range for their first day of qualification training. Among them was a young man, tall and confident, who looked at the targets and smirked. "This is going to be easy," he told his buddy. "I've been shooting since I was a kid." The range master, a grizzled veteran, walked past and heard the comment. "You think this is easy, son?" "Yes, sir, I'm a natural shot." The range master smiled and pointed to a plaque on the range house wall. It showed a photo of Maya Chen, in uniform, holding a rifle. "See that woman? She stands 5'2", weighs 110 soaking wet. And she set every record on this range, every single one. You know what we call her standard?" "No, sir." "We call it impossible to beat, but we still make everyone try. Because if you can't respect that a person that size can shoot that well, then you don't belong here." The young man looked at the photo, his smirk fading. "Now drop and give me 50 push-ups for thinking this would be easy. Nothing about this is easy. That's the point." As the candidate hit the ground to do his push-ups, the range master looked at Maya's photo and smiled. She had changed more than records, she had changed minds. And that, more than any medal or promotion, was the victory that mattered most. The little girl who had learned to shoot from her Marine father. The lieutenant who had been mocked on the range. The captain who had broken every record and completed an impossible mission. Captain Maya Chen had proven that strength isn't measured in size. It's measured in heart, skill, and the courage to never give up. No matter who tries to tell you that you can't.